Hi everyone, welcome to another maths video by Maths with Sarah. So today we're going to be tackling this probability question. So we've been given part of a tree diagram here, which looks at spinner A and the probability that spinner A lands on a 2 or doesn't land on a 2. And then we've also got spinner B, and again the probability that either lands or doesn't land on a 2. So we've been given the two spinners here. And we've been asked the end questions after completing the tree diagram. We've been asked to work out the probability of a number of different outcomes. So let's get started then. As with all these questions, I do encourage you to pause the video and to have a go yourself before you then look to finish watching the video to check whether you've got the answer right and how you would go about doing it. So again, it doesn't matter if you can't fully do the question or if you get the wrong answer, but I do encourage you to at least have a little think about how you might tackle this question. Okay, so the way that I would tackle this question, we start with spinner A. So we're looking at two different probabilities, the probability that spinner A lands on a 2 or that it doesn't land on a 2. So if we look at spinner A over here, we can see that there are 3 different outcomes for spinner A. It either lands on a 2 or a 1 or a 3. So the probability, it's a triangle shaped spinner, and we've got 3 different sides. So the probability that this lands on a 2 would be 1 in 3 chance, or 1/3. So we can pop that on in here. We know that if it lands on a 2, the probability of it landing on a 2 is 1/3. And the probability that it doesn't land on a 2 will be 2/3. So it could land on either of these 2 sides, so 2 out of the 3 sides, and that would not be a 2. So we can pop 2/3 in here. So that fills in the part of the probability tree that looks at spinner A. And we now need to do exactly the same for spinner B. Now, if you look at spinner B, it's actually exactly the same as spinner A, which makes this question nice and a little bit more straightforward than it could have been. So again, we can see that there's a 1 in 3 chance of spinner B landing on a 2. So we know that this here will be 1/3. And the same is true as for spinner A. So the probability that it doesn't land on a 2 would be either 1 or a 3. So that will be 2/3. And again, we can just do a quick check that that does seem to be right. So we know that the total of probabilities always adds up to 1. So we can do 1/3 plus 2/3, 3/3, which is the same as 1. So yeah, we can again be fairly sure that at this point we're kind of doing something that seems sensible. We can then repeat this again here because we've got exactly the same. Spinner B is either landing on a 2, which would be the probability of 1/3, or not landing on a 2, so 2/3. Okay, so we have completed the probability tree diagram for this. All the probability tree diagram does is just look at the probability that it does or doesn't happen. Essentially, you've got 2 outcomes in this case, and that's what we've been asked to work out. So the next part of the question asks us to work out the probability that spinner A lands on a 2 and spinner B does not land on a 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down some of these different branches. So we will start by going from, we know that spinner A needs to land on a 2. So we're going to go down this branch to get to land on a 2 for spinner A. And then we've been told that spinner B does not land on a 2. So we'll now be going down this branch here to get to the one that does not land on a 2. Okay, so this is the only branch we now need to focus on. It doesn't matter what the others say, we just need to focus on this branch. So spinner A landing on a 2, spinner B not landing on a 2. And in order to work out the probability of this happening, we need to do each of the probabilities. So one probability times by the next probability, just for this combination of branches. So in that case, to get this total probability that spinner A lands on a 2 will be 1/3. And then we're going to times that by the probability that spinner B does not land on a 2. So that will be 2/3. Okay, and if we multiply those together, remember if you're multiplying fractions, it's fairly straightforward. We just times the 2 numerators and then times the denominators. So in this case, we do 1 times 2 to get 2 for the top, the numerator, and then we do 3 times 3 to get 9 for the denominator. And then the last step, we just want to check that we can't simplify this at all, but there aren't any factors. 2 and 9 don't have any common factors other than 1, of course, so we can't simplify this any further. So this will be our final answer. So the probability that spinner A lands on a 2 and spinner B does not land on a 2 will be 2/9. Okay, so hopefully that made some sense. Probability trees can get a lot more complicated than this, but equally, this is not an easy question. I think this is the sort of thing that will come up in both foundation and higher papers. So this is applicable to pretty much everyone who does GCSE Maths. And I do think that it's important to get quite comfortable with these because they do come up quite often. So the next video that I'm going to be doing, I think, is another statistics type question. So if you want to know about that one, then I encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you know what's coming up next. And lastly, thank you very much for watching.